Welcome back to the top 10 best gold farms of the week. Let us begin. Coming in at number 1 is the Royal Jelly Gold Farm. Now this one is actually located within the zone of Stormsong Valley within the BFA expansion on 𝐆𝐀𝐌𝐄 𝐕𝐨𝐢𝐝. Now, one thing to mention when about this gold farm is quite lucrative in farming up. However, you will need to be alliance in order to do this. This is because the Royal Jelly is linked with getting the Honeyback Harvester, which is an alliance only mount and an alliance only reputation. This one can be done by basically getting a hold of one of the Bumblebee battle pets. I prefer the Sea Breeze battle pet as it's relatively inexpensive on the auction house. However, it may vary for yourself depending on how much gold you actually have on hand. That being said, once you actually do that, you can do the full little quest line and getting yourself all the way over to Revered. You will have to be alliance, you will have to have base quest chain done in order to harvest said honey from the zone of Stormsong, and also if you want to take it that a step further and have the nodes show on the screen, you will need to get at least to Revered by the Hologogs in order to actually locate, much like a mining or a herbalism node. However, once that setup is really done, that opens you up to a completely new type of gold farm, which is the Royal Jelly Gold Farm, and can be done in the same route as the mining and herbalism farms respectively for that initial zone. That means that when you go around this entire zone, you can just follow it, and if you're doing it on a miner and a herbalist, you can farm up Royal Jelly along with the mining nodes and the herbalism nodes, making it an amazing multi-farm in order to do. That's how another way in order to increase your gold per hour is by combining all three of them together. However, if you're just doing the Royal Jelly Gold Farm, you can do that, and that works out rather well, as this material is used to gain reputation as for hand-ins for people who want to just speed run the reputation and thus getting their Honeyback Harvester mount. Now I got my mount back in BFA, so if you want to get yourself to Exalted, it will cost you a fair amount of jelly, and thus that's why it derives its value, is because of the mount that's locked behind that reputation. Coming in at number 2 is the Shadow Dust Gold Farm. This one is located within Terokkar Forest, and Shadow Dust is used in order to gain reputation with the Tatari Skyguard reputation. There is a total of 5 mounts, I believe, for the Mana Ray mounts, and thus this derives a very strong value, as Shadow Dust can only be farmed in this one particular zone in Terokkar Forest. Now, with about 3 hours worth of farming, I worked out and concluded you can get to Exalted, because I actually did it and managed to gain a ton of data for this actual gold farm. That being said, it's basically just going around in a loop, slaying all of the Arakoa. You do get some nice transmog to go along with that, and some world drops as well as all of that. However, the Shadow Dust is your main contributor, and the time lost scrolls are merely just something to sell on the auction house for a little bit more. It does give you reputation, but you need to gain a few of those scrolls in order to spawn the little mini bosses that drop the extra stuff. So what I would recommend is just specifically going for that Shadow Dust and slaying all of the Arakoa in a circular state motion for an hour, and you will actually get more. As I did this the other day, I managed to get into upwards of around about 16 to nearly 17,000 gold per hour, which at this moment in time when it comes towards materials actually works out really well. So that being said, that is a great gold farm, and that is why it's at number 2. Following on to this is a battle pet gold farm at number 3, and that is the Azure Welping. Now, jumping into the zone of Winter Spring, you'll be wanting to go to the bottom side of the map, to the border of Azure and Winter Spring respectively. Here you will find a load of ice elementals which you can then slay. These guys can actually drop Essence of Water along with a load of the Jade and Lofty armor sets, which add additional gold to this gold farm. Due to the fact that this is an old world high level zone, this has a chance of dropping a load of different types of world drop recipes that go for a ton of gold as well. However, your main keynote item that you're actually going for is the Azure Welping. This one has a fairly low drop chance. However, once you slay every single one of these mobs, they will start force respawning. This is because they're linked between a certain type of quests in order to actually get them done, and because there's such a finite amount of them, it actually does make them force respawn coincidentally, and makes it a great gold farm for anyone who's really speedrunning this. Primarily this is better done in a group, as you can camp it with certain areas with loads of your 5-man party. However, you can do this solo, as you see with me on the screen right now, just doing a little bit of a route around the little area. That being said, it nets you in a decent amount of gold overall with transmog recipes and also essence of water and all of the other different types of reagents that you gain along with that. However, I'm able to get a hold of an Azure Welping pretty dang fast with this gold farm, as aside any other of these different types of gold farms in these particular zones. That being said, that's why it's at number 3 on this list. Coming in at number 4 is the Scarlet Monastery. Now, I chose this one because it's doing pretty well at the moment. Along with the Hallow's End Scarlet key drops that open up the old world Scarlet Monasteries, I'll be talking about those in the future because the drops on those are pretty dang awesome. However, when it comes towards the Scarlet Monastery in particular from the Cataclysm, this one actually has some decent no items if you're willing to put in the effort for this. These ones are tending to sell a bit more frequently as of now. I'm not too sure why. However, the sell rates on these are a little bit upticks than usual, and thus I've put this on this list. The Scarlet Boots is a keynote item, which is one of the most sorted after Scarlet type of items that you're actually going for. And along with that, other different types of transmog items are the Sunblazed Coif, the Beghilar's Robes, the Chestful Musket, Cobalt Crusher, which I have 2 on the auction house, and the Archon Chess Piece, which all of these go for some seriously stupid amounts of gold. For instance, the Archon Chess Piece is going for around about 6 million gold on my server at this moment in time. The Scarlet Boots are going for 50k, Sunblazed Coif is going for 1,600. The Beghilar's Robe 6,400, the Chestful Musket 4,000, and the Cobalt Crusher is 37,000 gold. This means that when you actually get a hold of a couple of these different types of items, in particular the Cobalt Crusher and the Scarlet Boots and the Archon Chess Piece, these ones are going to net you in some seriously good gold when it comes towards transmog. And I like to cover a variation of gold farms for the week with a mixture of materials, transmog and dungeons going alongside recipes and all that jazz. Hence why the Scarlet Monastery is doing pretty well at this moment in time, and such it is at number 4 on this list. Coming in at number 5, we have the Windscales gold farm. This one is located within the Outland zone of Shadowmoon Valley, not the WoB one, Outland. What you're going to be wanting to do is making your way over towards the bottom side of the map, over where the Blood Elves are situated. What you're going to be wanting to do is take out the hawks that are actually flying around where the Blood Elves are. Notably, the Blood Elves you can slay with them, however this is more of a skinning gold farm, as the Dragon Hawks have a chance of dropping Windscales. Windscales are used in a few different types of crafted transmog which go for a decent chunk of gold. Hence why Windscales gain a decent value, because it is one of those scarce materials that people don't really farm all that much than conventional other materials. Hence why it gains a higher value on the auction house. Following on to that, when it comes towards Windscales in general, Windscales are very easy in order to farm up, because all you're doing is just doing a loop around the Blood Elf base, killing all of the Dragon Hawks and skinning them for their leather. You can get a mixture of not hide leather and Windscales to go along with that, and can be sold in the auction house for a decent chunk of gold. The best thing about this gold farm is when you actually complete your loop, the mobs that you first started off with will have respawned, so you can keep slaying these mobs continuously and endlessly as long as you feel free to do so. So if you want to go over an hour's worth of farming, feel free. If you want to do less, then yeah, sure, do that. But alongside that, it's a decent gold farm, and at the moment in time it's selling rather well in the grand scheme of things. Next up at number 6, we have the Blackwing Layer. Now when it comes to skinning farms, I like to take my skinner through Blackwing Layer. This is because it can drop multiple different types of battle pets which don't overly go for a decent chunk of gold. Chrominius at level 25 does really well if you take out the boss Chrominius, but realistically you're mainly going in here for the high level recipes and or transmog, along with the leather that you get along with this. More coincidentally, you can use some of the mobs to actually knock you over the wall, getting you around the slowing affected areas. I myself take my Skinner in here at least once a week, mainly due to the fact that I have a 0.2% chance of getting a hold of the Orb of Deception toy from Nefarian. Along with my Skinner taking out all of the mobs, I'm able to get black dragon scales along with a load of rugged and thick leather, along with their additional hides that you get along with that, and the worn dragon scales. Following on to that, you want to take out Chrominius and skin him. This is because he is one of the only ways to get a hold of blue dragon scales within the entire of WoW in retail at this moment in time. He drops a couple of these blue dragon scales per week and they fetch a decent chunk of gold, so it's always worth skinning him, even if you're just coming in there for transmog, for instance. It's just a nice little uptick for gold. With that being said, you get a variety of all the different types of dragon scales, that being red, green, blue, following on to all of that, and even a chromatic scale which fetches some decent gold. On my run that I did this week, I managed to get a recipe for 32,000 gold, and that was a transmute for the alchemy profession, which I actually learnt. I didn't sell because I'm going into a bit of a crazy mode for learning different types of recipes. However, if I would have sold that on the auction house, that would be a nice uptick for a 9-minute gold farm. Following on to that, we have at number 7 is the Foxkit gold farm within Tol Barad. What you're going to be wanting to do is make your way over towards your faction capital of Stormwind or Orgrimmar and go towards the Cataclysm portals. Here you'll find a small portal in each respective zone for Tol Barad. Once there, you're more than welcome to go over towards my Discord and get the macro in which I've put into farmed info. This gives you a load of waypoints for all of the Baradin foxes within the actual zone of Tol Barad. What you're going to be wanting to do here is, by going around in a complete circle, slaying all of the mobs for the Foxkit battle pet. The Foxkit battle pet is actually really expensive for this type of battle pet, and not many people actually farm it up. However, the drop chance for the mob density isn't that great. However, the gold and sell rate does go rather well for the hand-in-hand change of your time versus how much you're getting at this moment in time. And I find it to be a nice little quick gold farm. I don't really farm it for like an hour. I kind of just do a loop, complete the loop, log back out and add it to my daily routine. And that's how I prefer to do it, as it only takes me roughly around about 7 to 8 minutes to complete the entire zone, depending on if I want to carry that on, because I always stop to pick up herbs, as Azure Welping is prevalent there too. Following on to that, when it comes towards this battle pet, it can be sold on the auction house at this current moment in time for around about 45,000 gold, and I'm really happy with the way that's looking for me personally, as I have 2 currently in my pet journal, which I'll probably sell on the auction house. Now, coming in at number 8 is the Trial of the Crusader. The Trial of the Crusader raid has a wide variety of different types of pets to actually sell on the auction house. The most notable of which is the Snowballed Rump, which I actually managed to gain on this literal footage for this video. And this one sells currently for around about 11,000 gold on average for the region of EU. That's pretty dang good for something that only takes me roughly around about 10 minutes in order to completely clear. You have to go for a bit of RP. However, the Snowball Rump mob drops from the first boss or first trial that you complete. This means that you're going to get a decent chunk of gold just by doing the literally a few minutes of a farm and just min-maxing for that Snowballed Runt. If you can make it sway all the way over to completion, however, and do the 10 to 15 minutes, no matter how long it actually takes you to do, then you can get a hold of the battle pet for the Dreadmaw, which isn't worth an awful lot of gold. However, the Nerubian Swarmer is one of the ones that goes for a decent chunk of gold also. So if you wanted to min-max a few minutes, just go in, kill the first trial. and leave. However, follow it all the way to completion, you'll have a couple more battle pets to sell on the auction house. That being said, I do very much enjoy doing this one each and every week with a couple of my characters. This is a very quick and easy gold farm to gain some very quick and easy gold. Following on to that, the drop chances for this is relatively good, with that said, it's worth my time for a few minutes each and every week. Staying within Wrath of the Lich King is my literal favourite gold farm of all time, the Wintergrasp gold farm for mining and herbalism. This one is in the zone of, obviously, Wintergrasp, the contested zone. However, I like to farm this on a druid simply for the fact of when a battle or a conflict is actually going about, it will dismount anyone on a flying mount. However, druids have the advantage by when the debuff appears, you press to get out of your flight form, and then while you're falling in the air, you press flight form again and it removes the debuff. Do that and you are able to completely keep on flying around the zone while your competition cannot farm this up. Titanium ore sells for a decent chunk of gold in the auction house, and so does Saronite ore. All of the other different types of materials that coincide with this works out rather well in the grand scheme of things, but at the end of the day, it's mainly the titanium ore that you're going for, and everything else is just a footnote. This is where the bulk of the majority of the gold that you're actually going to be gaining from this gold farm, and it's one of the most simplistic ones that I like to do. However, for me, when it comes towards farming this up, I tend to follow the worth it route, so the route that is within worth it, as I actually just copied it from my routes and put it onto worth it at the beginning of when Worth It just got made, and I've never changed it because it just works so well. This is just a bog standard, reliable gold farm that I really recommend people to go and check out. Which leads us onto our last gold farm, which is Oldman. Now, don't get me wrong, Oldman's doing alright. It's one of the most prevalent transmog farms in existence, and what you can do is a 7-minute to 10-minute run, depending if you have a speed set or not, and you'll be able to gather up all of the mobs and run all the way down to the last boss, Arcadus, to burn all the mobs down. Doing a complete run works out in roughly around about 7 to 8 minutes for me on average, depending if I can be bothered to use my speed set or not, as I always leave it in my bank. That being said, don't forget to take out the last chest at the end behind Arcadus's body once you have slain him. This has a chance of giving you a load of different types of recipes, MOG, that are not confined to the conventional other loot tables within this dungeon, and has a chance of dropping some really rare MOG. Other MOGs that actually drop from this is the Pendulum of Doom, a keynote item, the Energy Cloak, Miner's Hat of the Deep, which has actually started to drop from this, and hence why it is on the actual video for this week. The Miner's Hat of the Deep is actually dropping again in Alderman, which means the value for it has gone from gold cap to about 500,000 gold at the time of this recording, or the historical value of 1.2 million. Other keynote items are the Papel Fez, the Spirewind Fetter, Adventurer's Pith Helmet, the Spolders of the Lost Age, 679,000 gold, Leggings of the Vault, the Monolithic Bow, the Stone Vault Shiv, Shadowforge, Bushmaster, Beacon of Hope, Digmaster 5000, which is a gold cap item, the Excavator's Brand, Stone Vault Bonebreaker, Annealed Blade, the Jinsu Sword, 300,000 gold, the Obsidian Cleaver, the Jackhammer, which hasn't been seen for donkey's yonks, but if that actually did drop for you, that is an immediate gold cap, and the Shoveler and the Earthen Rod. Obviously, the keynote items are the Papal Fez, Jinsu Sword, Pendulum of Doom, Miner's Hat of the Deep. Those ones are the keynote items for this. But realistically, this is a very easy dungeon in order to farm up for transmog. And now that the Miner's Hat of the Deep is actually being confirmed to actually drop again, this is pretty dang good for gold farmers, as Oldman has a load of different types of unique items to sell on the auction house and expand your variety for any transmog farmer. Other than that, that is the top 10 gold farms for the week. If you want to check out any other different types of video guides, gold making resources or information, then please feel free to go over towards the Patreon with my TSM profile. Other than that, have an awesome rest of the day, and I shall see you in the next video, which will be soon.